My name is Peter Whitmore. I'm 73 years old. I didn't start telling this story because I wanted attention. I started because at this age, some truths become too heavy to carry alone. They don't let you stay quiet anymore. For most of my life, I believed I had done things the right way. I worked hard. I paid the bills. I showed up where I was supposed to. I followed the path that men of my generation were taught to follow. And for a long time, I thought that was enough. Susan and I were married for 41 years. 41 years is a long time to share a house, a routine, a last name. It's long enough to believe you know someone completely. It's also long enough to stop noticing the small distances growing between you. Susan passed away 6 years ago, pancreatic cancer. When the doctors told us, it didn't feel real. She went from healthy to fragile in a matter of months. I kept thinking there would be more time. Time to talk, time to fix things, time to slow down and really be there. Time didn't wait. In her final days, lying in that hospital bed, Susan looked at me with a calm I didn't recognize at first. There was no anger in her voice, no bitterness, just honesty. She told me that we had spent too many years trying to be right instead of trying to be close. At the time, I didn't understand what she meant. I felt defensive. I told myself we had built a good life, a stable life. But later, sitting alone, I realized she wasn't accusing me of doing something wrong. She was mourning everything we never did. And that realization changed the way I see my entire life. When I think back to our early years, nothing felt broken. We were young, busy, full of plans that all seemed sensible at the time. I had a steady job, one that demanded long hours and constant attention. It wasn't glamorous, but it was respectable. People relied on me, and I took that seriously. Susan understood that, at least I believed she did. Our days followed a rhythm. Mornings rushed, evenings tired. We'd sit at the same table, eat dinner, talk about practical things, bills, schedules, what needed fixing around the house. I thought that was what adulthood looked like. Quiet responsibility, keeping things running. Susan would sometimes try to interrupt that rhythm. She'd suggest small things, not demands, just openings. Maybe we could take a class together. Do you remember how much we used to talk? Why don't we go somewhere this weekend, just us? I always had an answer ready, not harsh ones, reasonable ones. I was tired. Work had been heavy. Money needed watching. There would be a better time later. I truly believed that love was proven by consistency, by being reliable, by not leaving. I didn't think love required much imagination once you'd committed to it. What I didn't notice was how often later became a quiet dismissal. Susan never argued with me about it. That's something people misunderstand. Distance doesn't always arrive with shouting. Sometimes it arrives politely, softly, wrapped in understanding. So we stayed comfortable. And comfort, I would later learn, can slowly erase closeness without either person realizing it's happening. We didn't fall apart. We slowly drifted. The distance didn't announce itself. It showed up in ways that were easy to ignore. Conversations became shorter, not colder, just thinner. We talked in summaries instead of stories. I'd ask how her day was. She'd say it was fine. I'd say mine was busy. And that was enough to get us through the evening. I thought peace meant success. Susan stopped sharing certain things with me. At first, I didn't notice. Then I noticed, but told myself it was normal. People change. Interests shift. Long marriages settle into routine. That's what everyone said. What no one talks about is how routine can teach someone not to reach for you anymore. She found her own circles, friends I barely knew, activities she didn't invite me to. I told myself I was giving her space, that independence was healthy. In truth, she was learning how to live without my emotional presence. I was always nearby, in the same house, in the same bed, but often somewhere else in my mind, thinking about work, about responsibilities, about tomorrow. I missed the moments when she paused, waiting to see if I'd ask more, waiting to see if I'd notice something behind her words. Eventually, she stopped pausing. Looking back now, I can see the small signs. The way invitations felt less personal, the way her laughter came more easily around others, the way she stopped suggesting we do things together. I never meant to teach her that my attention had to be earned. But that's what I did, and by the time I felt something was wrong, the pattern was already set. The moment that changed everything didn't come with shouting or accusations. It came quietly, the way most real endings do. Susan got sick slowly. Nothing dramatic at first, just fatigue, weight loss, appointments that became more frequent. We adjusted the way we always had: schedules, medication, practical conversations. We were very good at practical things. In the hospital room, time felt different, slower, heavier. There were long stretches of silence where machines did most of the talking. I sat beside her bed, holding her hand, thinking I was finally doing what mattered. One afternoon, she looked at me with a kind of tired honesty I hadn't seen before. Not anger, not blame, just clarity. She said, "I used to wait for you to notice me." That was all. No long speech, no list of grievances, just that one sentence. I wanted to argue, to explain, to tell her I'd always been there, that I worked hard for us, that I loved her. All of that was true, and none of it answered what she meant. She told me she had learned, over time, to shrink her needs, to stop asking questions that went unanswered, to stop suggesting things that never happened, not because she stopped caring, but because hoping hurt too much. That night, I realized something unbearable. I hadn't lost her suddenly. I had been losing her slowly for years, and now with time running out, there was no room left to fix what had taken decades to break. I stayed with her until the end. I said the words I should have said sooner. I meant every one of them. But some words arrive too late to change the past. They only make the truth clearer. After Susan died, the house felt wrong. Not empty exactly, just unfamiliar. Like I'd been living in someone else's life and finally noticed it was mine. People tell you grief comes in waves. That's true. But what they don't tell you is how much of it comes quietly, disguised as ordinary moments. Standing in the kitchen and realizing no one will ask how your day was. Sitting in the living room and knowing the silence isn't temporary. I found her things slowly. Notes tucked into drawers, lists taped inside cabinets, small reminders she'd written to herself so she wouldn't forget what needed doing. I stood there reading them, realizing how much she had carried without ever asking me to notice. That's when the guilt settled in. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady. Our children checked in after the funeral. They called, they visited. They were kind. But something had already changed long before Susan got sick. I could feel it in the way conversations stayed careful, polite, safe. They loved me. I know that. But love and closeness aren't the same thing. I remembered the years I came home tired, the times I half listened, the moments I told myself I'd be more present later. I hadn't meant to teach my family to live without me, but somehow, that's what I'd done. When I retired, I thought things would finally shift. I thought time would fix what distance had created, but relationships don't work that way. You can't show up late and expect the same seat to be waiting. Everyone had learned a rhythm without me at the center of it. That's when I understood something I wish I'd known earlier. You don't lose people all at once. You lose them in inches, in the pauses you don't fill, in the questions you don't ask, in the moments you choose convenience over connection. And by the time you notice the space, it's already learned how to exist without you. At 73, the days move slower. Not because I want them to, but because that's how time treats you when there's less of it left. Mornings come quietly. Evenings stretch longer than they used to, and in that extra space, your thoughts don't stay polite. I started replaying things. Not the big arguments, we never really had those. It was the ordinary moments that kept returning. Breakfasts where we sat across from each other and talked about schedules instead of feelings. Evenings where the television spoke more than we did. Weekends where rest meant separation instead of shared time. I used to believe consistency was the same as care. That if I showed up every day, paid the bills, stayed faithful, that it counted as love. And maybe it did, to a point. But love that isn't tended to doesn't disappear dramatically. It thins out. It grows quiet. It becomes something people stop reaching for. I think about how Susan tried, gently, without pressure. She never demanded more from me. She just invited me into her world and waited to see if I'd step in. Most of the time I didn't, not because I didn't care, because I assumed there would always be another chance. That assumption follows you into old age like a shadow. Now, when my phone rings, I answer it right away. Not out of panic, out of awareness. When someone speaks to me, I listen longer than I used to. I ask questions I once thought were unnecessary. It doesn't undo the past, but it keeps me honest with the present. Some lessons arrive late. They still matter. I can't be the man Susan needed then, but I can refuse to be absent now in whatever time remains. That's the quiet work of these years, paying attention, staying open, letting the silence teach me what urgency never did. These days I keep one photograph on my desk. Susan on our honeymoon, 1972. She's laughing, hair caught by the wind, eyes full of plans she hadn't even named yet. I look at that picture often, not to punish myself, just to remember who she was before life slowly taught her to stop asking. People used to tell me I was a good husband. I know they meant it kindly, but age strips kindness down to truth. I wasn't a bad man, but I was an easy man to drift away from. I confused being dependable with being present. I thought love was proven by endurance, not attention. Susan was right. We spent too much time being right instead of being close. I understand now that closeness isn't built during crises. It's built on ordinary days, on conversations that don't feel important at the time, on saying yes when it would be easier to say no, on choosing curiosity over comfort. There are things I can't fix. Trips will never take. Conversations will never finish. Questions that will never have answers because the only person who could answer them is gone. That's part of living long enough to see clearly. If you're still walking beside someone, if there's a person in your life who feels familiar in a way that makes you careless, pay attention to that. Familiarity can be a gift, or it can become a quiet excuse. I don't have many years left, I know that, but I still wake up trying to be open, trying to be present, trying not to postpone the moments that matter. Because later is never guaranteed. If this story felt close to you, you don't need to say much. Just leave a word in the comments that reminds you to stay present. Something simple, something real. Sometimes, even a small acknowledgement is enough to bring people closer. As for me, I'll keep the photo where I can see it, and I'll keep choosing to show up for as long as I'm able.